Imagine that luck seems to have never been in your favor. A few years ago, your parents lost their lives in an unexpected accident. And destruction appears to you again, to give you the news that you have been diagnosed with a cancerous brain tumor. One night, after drinking too much, you go up to the roof and ask the heavens to end your suffering by destroying the world, and this time, your cry was answered. His words invoke a mysterious celestial being whose name means destruction. He is an intermediary between humans and the heavens. The man arrives and tells you that he can fulfill your desires if you are willing to pay an ultimate price. In the end, you end up accepting, and they make a deal. You can live the life you dream of for 100 days, after which the angel of death will take your soul. However, as he gets to know this incredible mortal, the man begins to fall in love with her, which results in complications in relations between humans and the immortal kingdoms. The episode begins with the protagonist discovering that she has a brain tumor. Dong Jae-young can't take a week off to do the biopsy, and the doctor tries to explain to her that with the surgery she will have a year to live and without it, only 3 or 4 months. As she is leaving the doctor's office, the protagonist bumps into a man in a lab coat, and he tells her that he knows how handsome he is, but he is busy at the moment. A man ended up claiming victims with a knife in the city and began a rush at the hospital to treat patients. Whoever committed the crime tried to take his life afterwards. However, they managed to stop him, and the paramedics stopped the bleeding. The man in the lab coat told the nurse to close the curtains around the bed and only let the police pass when they arrived. He approaches the perpetrator of the crime and says that the man has no authority to take people's lives, only his. Since the criminal carried out such an act, the man will leave him alive until the moment he chooses to take his life and, in the end, heal the patient's open wound. Then the police arrive to supervise him. The man goes to visit a woman. She tells him a metaphor and says that he is the butterfly in her garden. He says that it's sad to quote these words on his birthday, and the woman rebuts him, saying that the man didn't even have a birth or is a person to celebrate his birthday. Returning to the protagonist, she is going to meet a writer. When she receives a call from her boyfriend, he says in a hurry that he needs to meet her. At the designated location, Dong Jae-young ends up getting water in his face. The reason was because the man who asked him to be his girlfriend is married, and his wife discovered the betrayal. However, this is news to the protagonist too, but the woman doesn't want to believe it. Trying to make his pregnant wife better, she decides to take responsibility and take the blame for herself. However, the woman starts to feel sick, and Dong Jae-young takes her to the hospital. After the wife is medicated and is better, she explains herself to the protagonist. She says that trying to find someone to blame other than her husband was the easiest way to maintain the marriage, but it was not the right way. When he arrives at work, Dong Jae-young gets scolded by his boss for taking so long in the meeting. And while he is browsing the internet, he notices that there is a video where the protagonist appears. She is in the cafe with a woman who accuses her of having an affair with her husband. For a moment, Dong Jae-young freaks out and yells at his boss, then tells him he's taking the day off. The protagonist is heading home to the station and receives a message warning that a man is filming her. When he is confronted about it, as soon as the doors open, the man runs out, and Dong Jae-young follows. She begins a chase but soon stops because a crater has opened in the ground and sucked the boy in. At night, the protagonist receives a call from her brother asking for a favor. He borrows a considerable amount of money, and the two end up arguing because today is the anniversary of their parents' deaths, and he doesn't even show respect for it. At home, Dong Jae-young prepares dinner and eats a cake with a photo of his parents in front of him. Then his aunt calls to catch up and is happy when she hears that the protagonist is happy and healthy. Dong Jae-young goes up to the roof with a bottle of drink in her hands and starts making wishes when shooting stars pass by. In her wishes, she asks for the world to end. Meanwhile, the man she had bumped into earlier, who was wearing a lab coat, listens to the protagonist's desires and decides to fulfill them. Dong Jae-young is sleeping when someone rings his doorbell early in the morning. When she sees her, it turns out to be the doctor she bumped into earlier in the hospital, the one she thought was a kitten, and the man had bragged about it. The protagonist thinks about how handsome he is again, and the boy says he knows, as if he were listening to her thoughts. His name is Mile Mang, which can mean misfortune or destruction. Mile Mang tells her to make her wish before her birthday is over. However, the protagonist begins to think that she is hallucinating everything that is happening and believes it is the tumor's fault. To give her time to process and think, he leaves the place, but he left it marked on her calendar that he will lose his life in 100 days. Later, when he gets home, Mile Mang invades Dong Jiyoung's dream and brings her to her residence. She tries to escape. However, when she opens the door, it is higher than the clouds, and then he changes the location to a beach. Mile Mang explains that Mother Nature designed him, and even though he tried to destroy the world alone, humans have power over him, so suddenly it works with Dong Jiyoung's help. The protagonist's alarm clock starts to ring, and she wakes up, not knowing if it was really a dream or reality. Throughout the day, Dong Jiyoung starts meeting him in various places, including at work, posing as a writer. The protagonist, after talking for a while, decides to escape that situation and says that she will go out to meet another writer. On the way, Dong Jiyoung starts to feel severe pain in her head, which leads her to stop in the middle of the street and almost get run over by a truck. However, Mile Mang stops time and makes a proposal to the protagonist. He will save her if she closes the deal. The woman accepts, and everything around her begins to go back in time as they walk to the cafe. Dong Jiyoung cannot let go of Mile Mang's hand, otherwise, he will lose his life, so he puts a bracelet on her wrist, which appears to be a red string, to symbolize their agreement, and she will have to carry it throughout the night. Her, holding the man's hand. Mile Mang goes to prison to deal with that man he made live. The boy is trying to take his life, but Mile Mang stops him from doing that and repeats once again that only he will decide when the man will lose his life. Dong Jiyoung is going to see her friend, who is a writer, and on the way she receives calls from her ex-boyfriend, who she recently discovered has a wife, and because she wants to keep her distance, she doesn't answer. Her friend ended up losing her text in a blackout that was caused by Mile Mang, and the protagonist convinces her to start over and deliver it on time, otherwise, she will lose more and more readers. Dong Jiyoung decides to go to the grocery store to buy some decent things for the two of them to eat. At the store, she receives a call from her doctor. The man warns her that if she doesn't do anything about it, she will start to feel more and more pain and more strength. Mile Mang goes to visit her friend in the hospital. If he is the end, she is like God, and when asked why he was chosen, the girl just replies that it is destiny. He is cruel to everyone. The protagonist keeps receiving calls from her ex-boyfriend and not answering them, so the man sends her a message saying that he will regret this and that he is at the door of his office. When Dong Jiyoung arrives at the scene, the man is holding a sign and shouting that she is a homewrecker. The two end up fighting, and she tries to get him out of the place. However, she ends up getting more and more stressed and hearing horrible things about how she doesn't have parents, and that's why she's strange. His co-workers protect him and take him out, but the creature returns to the office and only leaves when his wife searches for him and drags him by the ears. The protagonist tries to deliver a letter of resignation to the colleague who took over as her boss while he travels, but the man doesn't accept it. Mile Mang appears to Dong Jiyoung, and when she asks what would happen if she backed out of the deal, she finds out that someone else would take her place, the person she loves most at the moment. The protagonist gets angry when she finds out, so Mile Mang puts them in the truck situation again and asks if she would do it differently. At Dong Jiyoung's house, her brother appears, and she remembers her Angel of Destruction's words that another would take her place, so she hugs her youngest. The next day, the protagonist goes out with her friend and says that she will not move on from this to a better one before she takes off in her career as a writer. Mile Mang goes to visit her friend Deus in the hospital, and upon arrival, she discovers that the doctors are reviving the girl. When she is stable, the man asks her what kind of being she is that is sick and sad all the time, so the girl replies that someone needs to pay the price for the things that happen in the world. Mile Mang goes to meet Dong Jiyoung. She is taking a photo to put in a frame. The two walk to the protagonist's house, and Mile Mang explains that he is just a button for the end. With every movement and breath that the man takes, some misfortune happens, and that is the reason for his existence. And if he decides to do nothing, hell will ensue on earth. When they arrive in front of Dong Jiyoung's residence, they are surprised by the presence of the girl's ex-boyfriend there. He says he is sorry and wants to be with her. The man starts to hug her, and the protagonist tries to let go. However, he is unable to do so, and her painting ends up falling to the floor and breaking the glass protection. Mile Mang decides to intervene and tells her to go inside, and he will sort it out. He introduces himself to his ex-boyfriend as Dong Jiyoung's current boyfriend, and the woman is surprised. When things are calmer, the protagonist makes a proposal. She invites him to live together, and Mile Mang accepts. The protagonist, shortly after she made the proposal, goes to the bathroom of her house to wash her face and regrets having made the invitation. However, when she opens the door, she changes her mind again. Mile Mang thought her apartment was too small, so she decided to bring her house inside. From the outside, it will look like the same place, but when you enter, it is much bigger. Dong Jiyoung confesses that she asked him to live together because she thought that the moment he left, he would disappear forever. Because she is used to people who are good to her leaving her life. Changing the subject, the protagonist wants to know where her bedroom will be, as there are several in the house, and she discovers when she opens the doors that they don't lead anywhere. It's as if they reflect the room. Her brother rings the doorbell, and Dong Jiyoung goes to the penthouse. The two talk to the aunt who raised them. After they hang up the call, Sun Jiyoung says that when she was chasing her sister's cheating ex-boyfriend, he had divine help, and the man ended up running over. Of course, the boy at least called 911. The protagonist's brother knows that because she went out with a married man, it was because he deceived her, as she is not one to do that, and the boy feels obliged to meet this current boyfriend to find out if someone else is deceiving her. To better know his verdict on whether the current one is good or not, Sun Jiyoung invites him to drink. However, the boy ends up drunk and, in the end, gives the two of them a blessing to date. After the protagonist's brother leaves, Mile Mang divides the houses half and half, his on one side and hers on the other. To keep an eye on his new roommate, Dong Jiyoung will sleep on the living room couch. The next day, when she is thinking about the terms of the contract she signed, the protagonist realizes that the person she loves will lose his life anyway, whether it will be because Dong Jiyoung breaks the contract or because he wishes for the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the boy that the protagonist's writer friend had a crush on when she was younger was called to attend a meeting with the members of her school days, and her friends telling him that Na Ji Na would appear too. The writer uses his name as her pseudonym. Returning to the protagonist, she is at the funeral with a writer who is her client to give her support and talk about some of her work. As she is leaving, a girl bumps into her, and she remembers where she knew Mile Mang. When her parents passed away, the man cried desperately at someone's coffin, something he said he never did. Dong Jiyoung is at the bus stop when a girl sits next to her, the same one she had bumped into and who is Mile Mang's friend. God, she asks which one she should take to get to her destination. Soon after, Mile Mang appears, and when the protagonist says that she had already seen him before, the man gets angry, telling them to talk at home. When the two are in the apartment, the man tells her to quit her job and enjoy the last few days of her life. However, Dong Jiyoung doesn't want to spend his order with money and needs to work to pay the bills. For a moment, she begins to think that he is in love with her with so much concern he has been showing, but Mile Mang denies it. When she asked who had died that day, he was crying, and when she saw him for the first time, she discovered that she was the man's mother. The next day, Mile Mang pretends to be the protagonist's boss at work, and to deal with this, Dong Jiyoung asks Mr. Cha to go to his place to meet Na Jina. However, the man doesn't know who he really is because he only knows her by her pseudonym. In the cafe, when they start the meeting, the two remember the past in which they were involved, and at that moment, Mr. Cha realizes that she is inspired by her old love to create her male characters, who happen to be Mr. Cha's childhood friend. Mile Mang decides to go after her friend Deus when she realizes that it was she who made the protagonist remember where she knew him, and she warns him that her feelings for Dong Jiang will increase more and more. The man decides not to take it easy on the protagonist, and when they meet again, he makes her feel so much pain in her head that she spends her desire asking to stop, but she doesn't do that. Mile Mang, in the end, eases Dong Jiang's pain and says that she will make her cry because of her and want to end the world to take her life. However, when the woman hears this, she decides to end everything at that moment and throw herself off the roof. However, the man she said didn't care held her back. The protagonist says that she knew he would save her again and that her plan is to try to love him so she wouldn't lose anyone. Because he was the person she would love most, she would still survive, and the world wouldn't end. Since the two will follow this line of reasoning, Mile Mang created a room in her house with a bed for them to share at night, in case Dong Jiang sleeps and he watches her. The next day, the protagonist does some research on how to fall in love, but nothing she finds seems to be good enough. So she turns to her writer friend. The two remember the first date they had. Na Jina was looking for drinks, and Dong Jiang had some in her backpack, so the protagonist sold them to the girl who climbed the wall. After the drink took effect, Na Jina declared herself to her lover in front of everyone. Her friend's advice for Dong Jiang to fall in love is to dream about Mile Mang, so meeting him in her dreams will happen. The writer tells her a little gossip. Mr. Cha is the man she gave her first kiss, but don't confuse it with the man she was in love with. Later, we see Mr. Cha at his house with his childhood friend, the one the writer loved. The man will lend him his car so he can go meet the class with the vehicle. The protagonist tells Mile Mang to enter her dreams at night, so she will try to follow the tips she received from her friend and from what she read on the internet. However, none of the attempts made so far have worked. Dong Jiang decides to try something different and asks his partner to tell him more about himself and show him his world. And as Mile Mang walks through the world, he is showing the protagonist that things start to lose life, so she understands why he avoids falling in love or having any connection. Everything in the end leads to the same place due to his own existence and fault. The next day, Dong Jiang tells Mile Mang that he forgives him for leaving his dreams suddenly and not letting her get closer, which makes the man very angry. Sun Jiang shows up at her sister's house, asking to borrow money, something that is very recurrent in their relationship, and this time she says it's for a course. However, she is worn out from all the courses the boy started and didn't go through with it. The two end up arguing because she was unable to develop some dreams to achieve because she was always working to support her little brother's dreams. The conversation doesn't end well, as Sun Jiang says that she would rather die than live like the protagonist. Mile Mang appears shortly after the fight and says that he could end the ungrateful man's life whenever he wanted, then questions whether Dong Jiang would forgive him for that since he is distributing kindnesses. The man begins to use his words more and more heavily, and in the end, the protagonist says that she doesn't want him alive, so he takes her to a forest and gives her a gun, saying that if it's your wish, just make it come true. Of course, the woman doesn't do anything. Later at home, Dong Jiang cries when she is alone and then gets a call from the hospital. Her brother is there. Mile Mang goes to the trial of the man he didn't let take his own life in prison, and he is charged with life in prison. However, the man wanted the sentence that would end his life. When the protagonist arrives where her brother is, she hears him saying that she is going to give the money like this, and she must be very scared. The woman immediately gets upset and leaves the hospital. Dong Jiang's doctor decides to stop his brother, who was trying to go after the protagonist, and tells him about his sister's situation. Dong Jiang meets Mile Mang in front of the hospital, and at that moment, that man, who was sent to prison again, is in the ambulance, passing by the two for having hit his head in one of his outbursts. However, the man is awake and is willing to try to take Mile Mang's life. However, when he manages to get out of the vehicle and is heading towards Mile Mang with something to cut him, the protagonist puts her body in front of her beloved to protect him. Mile Mang holds the sharp object with his hand and then makes the man end his own life. After what happened, Mile Mang transferred himself and Dong Jiang to a place close to the hospital, and then the people who saw the event forgot their presence and only remembered the man taking his own life. Upon hearing from the protagonist that she put her life at risk on impulse and doesn't regret it, he gets angry at what Dong Jiang did without having an explicit reason. However, the conversation is interrupted by the arrival of the woman's brother. The boy is devastated by the news that his sister is sick and cannot stop crying. At night, when he is calmer, he says he gives permission for his little brother-in-law, which is what he calls Mile Mang, and the protagonist to live together. Leaving, it dawns on the boy that he has to be more responsible at this moment, and Sun Jiang goes looking for a job. Fate or not, the coffee shop where Na Jina's crush works is hiring, and that's where the boy will start. Mile Mang wants to know why the protagonist defended him, and she says that if he just watches her, she will find out. Then the man appears again at work as a replacement for one of his colleagues. Mile Mang stares all the time, so much so that even Mr. Cha noticed. The next day at work, everyone faces a big problem. One of the editors, who is not the protagonist, accidentally published a chapter early, and they have to hear his boss scream. Dong Jiang takes the blame for the mistake that wasn't his to get it over with. However, she will have to convince the author to write more, and the boy is not a very cooperative figure. In order for the individual to agree to continue his work a little longer, the protagonist takes him to eat at an expensive place and then offers to do whatever he wants, including going to the market while he eats to get something that is not available in the restaurant. The boy treated her badly the entire time, and Mile Mang is a waiter at the place. When he sees the situation and that she left for a while to get more things, he sits down to talk to the writer and asks him to be less rude, which causes the boy to leave the place before Dong Jiang returns. Going home, Mile Mang treats the protagonist and takes her to the beach. She tells the man a secret. Whenever she felt like crying, she would go to this beach and stay there alone with her tears. Dong Jiang didn't want anyone to see her like that. At one point, the protagonist asks if Mile Mang wants to kiss him, and when the man goes towards her, she removes her face. Mr. Cha calls Na Jina and makes her a proposal. If the woman agrees to sign a contract directly with him, the man will make her reach the top 10 on the reading platform. Later, when the protagonist and Mile Mang are watching people together, he asks her to love him so he can save her life, which is what the man wants. However, Dong Jiang doesn't want to wish for that, because if he disappears after the deal is made, she doesn't know if she will be happy without having him in her life. The next day, the protagonist is going out with her coworker and asks her to arrange a blind date for her, so someone else would lose their life because she broke the contract and could still be with Mile Mang. After discovering at work that he would have to go after that arrogant juvenile writer, Dong Jiang asks Na Jina to go out and de-stress, and while they talk, she ends up telling her friend that Mr. Cha said he kissed her out of pity when they were younger. Na Jina calls Mr. Cha and asks to meet. She asks him if the man offered her a contract because he still feels sorry for her, and he says he believes in her potential. In the end, Na Jina signs. The protagonist takes her brother to have a test to see if he doesn't have a tumor too. The woman explains to her doctor that she is afraid it is genetic. In the end, the doctor says that he inspired her to help him with his treatment and gives him some medicines that will help with the pain. The doctor adds that he wants the woman alive. He doesn't want anyone else as his editor, and she deserves to live. Among the patients, some talk about a ghost doctor. However, the man's descriptions don't match, and some even see a woman. Even the doctor, when Mile Mang approaches, thinks he is Dong Jiang's younger brother, and upon discovering that he is like a boyfriend, says that he doesn't believe that love has an age and every form is valid. Also, when Sun Jae-young joins, he asks if Mile Mang dyed her hair. However, the protagonist has always seen him the same way. When she sees the selfie her brother took, she realizes that everyone sees Mile Mang in a different way. However, the man tells her that only she sees him as his true self, and she discovers that she is first in all these aspects. On the way home, Dong Jae-young finds that young author, but he ignores her, and at night he sends messages asking her not to go after him or send any more messages. The protagonist's co-worker, who she had asked to set her up on a blind date, tells her that it will happen after work. Mile Mang appears at the scene and surprises Dong Jae-young by pretending to be her colleague's boyfriend and introducing someone else to be her date. The man soon ends the meeting and takes the protagonist to another place. He shows her that she can want to love him, using her powers to almost kiss, but she doesn't want it to happen that way. Meanwhile, Mr. Cha is at Na Jina's house helping with her new book. When the man is leaving, he notices that his umbrella, from the day they kissed, is near the door and says he will get it back, which leaves the woman very ashamed. Later, it's the class date, and Na Jina is the only girl present. As soon as her old flame walks in, she's already a little uncomfortable. Even more so with the questions that his former colleagues ask about whether his wife still likes him or about the breakup. At the end of the date, the man approaches Na Jina and offers her a ride, but she doesn't accept. The next day at work, the protagonist asks Mr. Cha what he would wish for in the last days of his life, and as the conversation unfolds, the man says that if the person who grants the wish is a romance, the best thing would be to ask that person who falls madly in love with you. Dong Jae-young thinks about it on the way home, and luckily for her, it starts to rain a lot. When she gets off at the stop, she meets Mile Mang, and he tells the two of them to run home because it's fun. Before entering the house, the protagonist wants the man to love her. However, he says he cannot grant her that and then kisses her. In the next scene, we see her friend Deus saying that if something goes out of schedule or fails, it must be deleted or restarted, and then Mile Mang disappears. Dong Jae-young runs to her apartment to see if Mile Mang or her house will be there, but everything disappears and returns to the way it was before he appeared in her life. The next day at work, the protagonist is distracted thinking about what happened, and when she is told that the office CEO wants to see her, she imagines that it could be another prank by Mile Mang. However, she is surprised when she enters the room and discovers that it is actually the real CEO. The man asks her to organize a dinner at a restaurant to celebrate her return. And when she leaves, she receives another surprise that young writer appears to have had a private meeting with Dong Jae-young. He tells him that he will continue his work, albeit anonymously, as the people who became his fans in the acting competition he is participating in cannot know. When asked why the boy decides to continue writing, he responds that it is because of a man who always appears in his dreams, saying that if he doesn't finish writing, something will happen to him. The protagonist knows that it is Mile Mang, however she does not understand why he disappeared. We now see Mile Mang. He goes back in time to the day Dong Jae-young lost his job because the bus had a flat tire. Then his friend God shows him several sequences of bad things that happened in the girl's life and tells him that everything is because of man's fault. The girl did this so that Mile Mang remembers the purpose of her existence and thinks it's a joke that the man believes that Dong Jae-young will love him. She blames the tumor on her too. When she is going home, the protagonist meets him on the way and Mile Mang gives her a ride. The woman asks him questions, such as where he went and why he disappeared, but it is difficult to explain, as it was not his choice or decision for this to happen. She asks Mile Mang to take her to the entrance of the man's house, so Dong Jae-young knows where he lives, so when it happens again, she will know where to look for him. The man takes her to the place, but tells her to stop living together and just keep the initial agreement, without involvement. When the protagonist takes a step to get closer to him, she is transferred to her apartment. Sun Jae-young, at his work, catches his boss admiring a photo of a woman and asks about the man, tells him everything, including how his best friend helped him when he was younger. He didn't have the courage to break up with the girl, so his friend typed, and they just didn't see each other anymore. Sung Jae-young thought the story of an acquaintance of hers was similar. The boy also broke up with her via text message, and every time she drinks too much, she says she's going to make him pay for it. His boss takes him to the house he is currently living in, which actually belongs to Mr. Cha, and Sung Jae-young recognizes him as soon as he enters the place. However, it turns out that the people at the company don't know that Mr. Cha comes from a family that has a lot of money and that they even own the building, so the man asks the boy to keep this secret. Later, when Lee Hyun-gyu is cleaning the kitchen, his friend says that now that he has found a student, someone who looks up to him, just like Lee Hyun-gyu did for him, he can now move and live somewhere else. But the man says he will forever keep his best friend company. While Lee Hyun-gyu talks about Na Ji-na to his friend, Mr. Cha receives a message from her asking him to come to his apartment, but the man says he can't at the moment. We see how their first kiss happened. The girl was waiting in the rain for Lee Hyun-gyu in front of her building after he no longer responded to her messages, and Mr. Cha, who at the time was not given that name, saw her crying, saying that he had never even kissed his friend. Then, out of pity, or suddenly another mixed feeling, he kissed her. A writer who is a client of the protagonist's company holds a meeting with her and tells her that she will stop with the novel she was writing, as she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, so she will prioritize her health. The woman preferred to tell it herself rather than leave it to a writer who will attend the CEO's return meeting that night, who will probably bring the matter to the table. And this actually happens later. This not-so-kind writer talks about how the woman's ex-husband left her because he was tired of taking care of her, and if he were the man, he would have done it a long time ago. Even more uncomfortable, the man says that Dong Jae-young should be kinder to people so as not to end up alone and sick like the writer. This was the last straw for the protagonist, who decides to leave his place and tells everyone who only has 3 months to live, and then leaves. Dong Jae-young tries his best to bring Mile Mang to her, but nothing works, and he ends up sleeping on the living room floor. The man appears when she is still asleep and recharges the bracelet, then puts a pillow under her head and leaves. When the protagonist wakes up and realizes that he was there, she gets very angry and decides to break the bracelet. We see Na Ji-na in the next scene helpless. She has just found out about Dong Jae-young's illness and goes to the company office, where Mr. Cha calms her down and they talk about it. Due to the woman's nervous state, the man gives her a ride so that she doesn't drive. The protagonist ended up in the hospital and we see Mile Mang talking to her friend God. She says that the best thing is for him not to go see her, which is the right thing to do, and upon hearing these words the man decides to go after Dong Jae-young. After she wakes up, the protagonist starts walking around the hospital, and when she sees Mile Mang, she says things to hurt him. However, he is only concerned about how she is and hugs her. Then he scolds her for taking off the bracelet, and in the end, she says that she will tell Dong Jae-young everything. Mile Mang explains that all the bad things that marked the protagonist's life are to blame, and to his surprise, Dong Jae-young alleviates it by saying that certain things needed to happen and that whoever is saying these things to him should say that for Dong Jae-young, it's okay to be like this. Suddenly, the protagonist disappears, and Mile Mang looks for her everywhere but doesn't find her. When he bumps into Sung Jae-young and says he is his only child, the man starts to believe that the woman's existence has been erased. Dong Jae-young appears in a garden where God is. The girl says that she had planted a possibility in the flower pot that created a sprout with the protagonist suffering, and now, Mile Mang cares about someone more than himself. The woman tells Dong Jae-young not to suffer anymore because of Mile Mang, and the protagonist says not to blame him, as she has never felt unhappy because of the man. After that, God releases Dong Jae-young to return to his world, and the protagonist ends up at Mile Mang's door. She tells the man the entire conversation she had with the deity, and he says he was scared because no one remembered her. At the hospital, Sung Jae-young doesn't want to let his sister go home, but Mile Mang convinces him that he's a doctor and it's okay for her to go. Na Ji-na also appears in the hospital room and goes in the car to the protagonist's house. The two of them, her friend and brother, are very worried and don't want to let go of the woman. However, she asks them to leave so she can rest with her. Mile Mang. When everyone is going home, Na Ji-na tells Sun Jae-young that he has matured and that, in order to no longer go through things alone, she will share the burden with him, like another older sister. Returning to Dong Jae-un, Mile Mang puts the bracelet back on his wrist and the two decide to continue living together. Later, the man talks to his friend God, and in the end, she says that the woman is already loving him, and even a love with no future remains love. The next day, the protagonist receives a call from that writer, who is also sick, and the two meet to talk. The woman says that after she found out that she was defended by Dong Jae-young and that she had resigned, she also did the same and took her romances out of the company. Mile Mang is waiting for the protagonist after the meeting and gives her a surprise. When she says that she would have liked to enjoy the flowering trees more in spring if she knew it would be her last time, the man goes back in time so they can observe the flowers. The woman says that this brings back good memories when she was little. She remembers riding on a Ferris wheel with her brother and that it was a great family outing with her parents. Then Dong Jae-young goes to Na Ji-na's house and asks her friend to treat her normally, like she always was, and forget that she is sick, and the two decide to have a sleepover. As soon as the girls wake up, Mr. Cha appears at Na Ji-na's apartment, and the protagonist finds out about the contract that her friend signed directly with the man. Soon, she leaves to leave the two alone. Mr. Cha looks like he's going to open up and tell Na Ji-na something to consider when suddenly her doorbell rings and it's Lee Hyun-gyu at her door. Mile Mang meets the protagonist on the street and gives her another surprise. The man returns on the day she said she had a great memory with her parents and leaves the girl emotional. When they talk again about the desire that Dong Jae-young still has to choose, she says that she already asked the man to fall in love with her, but he didn't grant her that, and Mile Mang tells her that she doesn't need to worry about that. The man adds that she might like him and that only the protagonist matters to him now. And their conversation is interrupted when the aunt who raised Dong Jae-young and her brother appears. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me. Until next time.